Commissioner for championships with the Mountain West Conference. And as I mentioned, got extensive background with the NCAA, other conferences, individual institutions, so really diverse experience here. This is Keanah Smith.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, so hopefully I can talk to you a little bit about my background and what I've done, and maybe give you some helpful hints about working in college athletics. And where we going? And if you at any point you have questions, just raise your hands. Hopefully this will be just a very interactive conversation, and also if I start talking really fast, let me know that, because sometimes I forget. So, about me. So just to give you kind of a background, I am currently the Senior Associate Commissioner for Championships at the Mountain West Conference. Basically what that means is I am responsible for all of our Olympic sport championships, the regular season schedules and game management, as well as all of our Olympic sport championships. So basically what I don't work with, I don't do football and basketball. We all pitch in and help with those, but those are not the ones that I plan. So we've got, basically, we just came back from cross country, soccer's going on right now. We don't have a championship in volleyball, but we do have a regular season process in volleyball. So, and then swimming and diving, track and field, golf, tennis, that sort of thing. So what we do on a regular basis is mostly deal with our main 11 institutions, and kind of we are the people who resolve the issues. So, for instance, we had an issue this year where one team wanted to protest another team's field before they went there because they felt their field was oversized. And so that went back and forth. They talk to them. When they can't work it out, they bring it to the conference office. We kind of decide what you're going to do, this is what we're going to do, and then we resolve the issue. So we also deal with like major things. So I know you guys heard about the wildfires and such in California. Monitoring the air quality at the institutions and making sure it's safe for our teams to play. There were a couple of really close incidents about how can we move things around and stuff so that our student athletes are always remain safe when they're doing that. Then the flip side of that is also doing the championships and putting on championship events. And again, we try to provide the best venues and the best hosting opportunities. So sometimes our championships are at our institutions, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're hosted by a local community or city. And so we kind of vary that around. So that's kind of what I do right now. I also am the liaison to the SWA group, which as well as any of our ADs and board competition committees, which basically they oversee all of the, like if something elevates really up to a major level when somebody has really done something either wrong or there's a big decision to be made about how a competition is going to work, then we take it to that group. So like I said, I've been there about 1 year and 8 months. Prior to that, I started off as an assistant athletic director and then moved to an associate athletic director and then the chief operations officer at Miami University, where by the time I left there, I had a lot of hats. So my primary goal was I was in charge of all of our home game management. We had 19 sports, and when I first started, there was 2 of us. So 2 of us, 19 sports, everybody's home games. Yeah, we did not even get a day off a month. So it was just go, go, go all the time. As I moved up, I became a sport administrator for softball and soccer. I also oversaw the cheerleading program. Then I was in charge of the facilities and the facility schedules and the facilities maintenance. Now I wasn't in charge of building the facilities, thank God, but I was responsible. Once they got built, I got the keys, and then we ran with it. On top of that, I also oversaw the marketing department, the ticketing department, the sports information and broadcasting departments as well. So, like I said, a few hats. There was not a lot of time for sleeping, but Miami is the school that I went to and graduated from, and I remember when I first took that job in 2007, Brad Bates, who was the athletic director at the time, when I spoke to him, he was like, we really need your help. So when the school that you went to comes to you and says, we really need your help, you pretty much, you go. So that's what I did there. Prior to that, I was an assistant director of championships at the NCAA. So that is basically put on, as you know, the NCAA, I believe, has 90 championships now. So, and that's all 3 divisions. And this was the first time I ever actually worked with anything outside of Division I, which was very interesting because most people just think in their mind when they think about college athletics, unless they went to a different division school, they don't really think about Divisions 2 or 3 and how that works. But there are a lot of really good things to be said for Divisions 2 and 3. Like Division 2 has a whole slogan, has a whole campaign. It's called I Choose Division 2. Because they feel like their folks make an active decision to go to a Division II school because they want a different kind of college experience versus going to a Division I or Division III school, which I think is very, very applicable and really very interesting once you get to know about it. And if you don't know, so Division III, there are no scholarships. In Division II, there are limited scholarships. It's not a lot, and then obviously Division I is the model that most people know about. But there's different philosophical points about each one. I would say like Division III is kind of like Chariots of Fire. If you haven't seen Chariots of Fire, I know you guys are young, you need to watch Chariots of Fire. It will tell you, it gives you kind of that is the true amateurism thought, where you go to college to become a complete person physically and mentally, and that's how college athletics plays a role. Whereas Division II, there gets a little bit more money involved, there's a little bit more competitive ego, I guess, to that. And then obviously Division I don't think I really have to explain, everybody knows what that's about. Prior to that, I worked at Conference USA, where I was the assistant director for championships and marketing, and I had 9 primarily, and then we helped out with every other one. So I learned from an early age that, if you want to do event management, which is what I do, tell your parents now. They will not be seeing you in Thanksgiving. You may get a day off at Christmas. You will be working during your weekends. That is just not, because when everybody else is in their leisure time, watching games and having the holidays and things off, that's when you're working. Then I had various other jobs. I was fortunate, I knew kind of what I wanted to do when I got to college, so I knew that I wanted to work in college athletics. And these are some of the things I did, and I was willing to do anything. So I was an academic advisor, and I was an intern at Conference USA. At Indiana Special Olympics, I was responsible for training the coaches and the officials on how to officiate and train the students there. And then I worked for men's basketball, and I was a graduate assistant for men's basketball because I was a manager for men's basketball as an undergrad student. And how I got to be a manager for men's basketball was that I was a manager for basketball in high school. I also played softball, but I was a ridiculously poor math student, and our basketball coach was the math teacher, and so he offered extra credit if you would help him with basketball. So I, of course, signed up for this because algebra and all that is not my friend. So I did that, and that's how I kind of got down that path. So fortunately for me, one of the students I went to high school with was Alan Henderson, who, if you don't know, played in the NBA for the Atlanta Hawks. And he was being recruited pretty heavily out of high school to go to college. Well, he went to Indiana University, so, but before that, Indiana was heavily recruiting him. Joby Wright was the coach who was recruiting him, and he could practice every day. So he would see what I did at practice every day. Alan ended up going to Indiana. Joby then became the head coach at Miami. So when I got to Miami, he said, hey, why don't you come help us out? Because he saw what I did in high school, and there you go. So that's kind of how that got started. I also worked, I was a community relations intern for the Pacers. Actually, it just so happened, the head of community relations at that time had gone to church with my mom. My mom, when I told her I wanted to do sports, she kind of hooked me up with her. But the next year, there was a strike. And so I had done the camps and stuff for Reggie the year before as the intern, so they hired me to kind of run in between, because Reggie couldn't talk to the front office people, so I was kind of the go-between person, which was, again, really kind of cool. So that's kind of how my career. My number one piece of advice for everyone: your reputation is your resume. More than anything that you can write down on a piece of paper, what people know about you, what people see that you do, that is the thing that's going to determine how far and fast you go. And everybody, there is such a long memory. Everybody knows everybody. You think of like 6 degrees of separation, it's more like 3. Every person that works in after they know somebody that knows somebody, and that's pretty much it. So when you go and you submit your resume, and hey, say maybe you didn't put down one reference because you know you didn't have the greatest experience with that person, it's coming out, because the community is just too small, and everyone knows everybody else. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is that's pretty much the number one thing. If I say nothing else today, that's what it is. So one of the things, hold on, I'll go back, because I see I'm jumping ahead. One of the things that I would tell you that you're doing, so how many people already work with some sort of athletic organization, volunteer work, intern, something with somebody? Good. You should all be doing that now. Like if you're in school, this is a great time to go in and ask somebody, hey, what can I do to help you? Because we will all take free work. I don't care what level of organization you are. Everybody will like, oh yeah, sure, we can use some free help. So that's how you start, and you must come every day willing to do whatever it is. I don't care if it's making coffee, making copies. I swear to you, I had an internship where all I did was make copies. And when it was back in the day, again, I went to college and there was no internet. There was none of all this fancy. We had a copier room that was probably about the size. A copier that was probably about the size of that wall there. It's a Gestetner. I will never forget. This copier was a beast. It could do just about anything. And so I spent my days in that room trying to figure out how to work that thing and make the things that they asked me to do. But that's what you need to do in order to do that. And in my job history, I'll tell you, the last job that I actually really applied for was at Appalachian State. So, because what happens is, so I was at Appalachian State, and I was working, but because the person who I used to work for at Conference USA left, they just called me and said, hey, would you be interested in this job? And that's how I went there. Then how I got to the NCAA is the athletic director at DePaul University said, hey, when the NCAA moved from Kansas City to Indianapolis, they lost a bunch of their staff. And they're like, hey, we love you, we want to, but we think you need to go here and work. They need help, you need to go do that. So you need to call this woman Judy Sweet and give her your resume. And that's what I did, and that's how I got that job. And then I started the bowling championship at the NCAA, which everybody chuckles, but watch, it's one of the highest rated championships of bowling at the NCAA. So I started the bowling championship. My first chair of the bowling championship was a guy named Brian Reese, who was at the time at Vanderbilt, who was friends with my athletic director, Brad Bates, who worked at Vanderbilt. Then, when the job at Miami came open, Brian called Brad and said, hey, you should hire this person. And she went to Miami, so then I met Brad at a Champions in a Marriott at the Final Four, and that's how I got that job. And then when I left Miami, I got recommended by the commissioner of the Mid-American Conference to the commissioner of the Mountain West Conference for a job that my job was never advertised. And so that's how I got that job. So you see what I'm saying? It's like, really, it's so difficult to just cold go in, read an advertisement for a position, send in a resume, and get a job. It's who you know, what they think about you. If that person's going to recommend you to somebody else, that's how you get up. That's how you advance. And the only reason people are gonna recommend you is if they think that you're going to do a rock star job, because I know that's how I am now. I'm not recommending you if sometimes you came in late and sometimes you weren't really happy about what we had you do, or you were complaining about this, that, and the other. Because when I recommend you to someone, I'm putting my reputation on the line. Because if you go someplace else and do a crap job, then that's gonna reflect on me. So I'm only gonna recommend people that I think are gonna knock it out of the park. Make sense? So one of the things that I talk about here, I'm not sure, but this is like your why. When I was at Miami, I started an intern program. And so we would have somewhere between 11, I think the most I ever had was 19 interns every year. Because 19 home events, 2 people, you can't really do that by yourself. So we got interns to come in and help us. And my intern program was pretty hard, and we didn't pay you from the beginning. We didn't pay you. It's pretty hard. But if you came in and you did a good job, then I would help you get a job when you graduated. And that was pretty successful. So word of mouth got around, and so now it's like the internship to have on campus, because if you get it, because basically now we know we're very selective about who you take. Which is very nice for the folks who are still there continuing to work on. But when doing event management, as I said, like you can, if you're on campus, that's a ridiculous amount of hours. It is still, no matter what level you are doing, because you're working every single game. With your staff, even if you are the head of the department, you're still there, no matter down to the peon. You've got to make sure that you are really committed to that thing that you want to do. So you've got to figure out why you want to do it. You've got to figure out some innate thing that makes you say, I want to get up and do this every day. Because when you're standing for 4 hours in the sleet in November at a game that has 6 people at it, you might be asking yourself, what the heck did I get myself into? And then you get home at 1 a.m. and you have to turn around and come back at 6. And you have to do that for 20 days in a row. And then you might get a day off to go do your laundry. So you've got to figure out what your innate strengths are. Where do you add value? How are you going to measure your life at the end of the day? For me, I like taking care of details for other people. That's what I do. That's why I do what I do. If I ran a pet shop, I would still be doing it because I like to take care of details for other people. Now, working in college athletics allows me to take care of details for thousands of people at a time. So it's very fulfilling for me. Whereas you've got to figure out what that is for you. Okay? So that's what I would, why do you do it? What's going to make you get up every day? What's going to make you really, really want to stand in the sleet at a field hockey game? Because I meet so many people all the time that think my job is really cool, which I always chuckle at. Because they're like, oh, I'm the biggest fan, I love you guys, this is the coolest job, you must do A, B, C, D. And I was like, okay. I said, and they're like, I love sports, I love football, whatever it is. And I'm like, do you really? Do you love it? Because what I think you love is watching football on your couch on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, tailgating and whatever. I have never tailgated, ever. Why? Because I'm probably running around resolving some issue in the parking lot. But what you want to do, I say to that person, I was like, so you really love it? Because I go to football games at 5 a.m. before the parking lot's open. And we've usually been there the night before, because once we park the TV truck and the tailgaters had already started making sure everybody's in their right space, because that is a big darn deal if somebody has paid $350 for this parking space right here and somebody else has snuck in and got, you can't have that. So you've got to make sure lots are blocked off, you've got to make sure people are monitoring, and you've got to make sure everything is running smoothly to that end. Then the next morning, you're back at it, more people are coming in, you got to make sure your ushers and parking attendants and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. You got to make sure everything sets up and gets started, and everything from the PA system on down is working, so that when people come to the game, they don't notice any of these things. You're checking on every single thing about the facility and the game day and the traffic. I had people out and giving me traffic reports so that we know which ones that we can reroute people, because we used to get these big electronic construction signs and put them out and to redirect people in case there was an issue. And especially in Oxford, there are 3 two-lane roads that come in and out of town. 3. Getting to Oxford is a challenge. On a game day with 10,000 other people getting to Oxford, it is a ridiculous challenge. And that was probably that's probably the biggest hang up we have, is that people don't want to sit on 2-lane roads in traffic. And if there's an accident, it all comes to a screeching halt. So, things that made me want to do that when people are yelling at me because it's raining, I can't help that. But when people are yelling at me because they didn't get I have to remember why. This is what makes me keep going back. This is why I've done it for 20-some years. So, figure out your why. Oh, there it is. See, I wondered where that went. If you don't have a why, I also talk to a lot of younger students who are like, I just want to work in Division I college. I just want to work at an FBS program or a Power 5 school. And I'm like, well, but why? Do you know why? And if you do, then what are you going to do when you go there to do that? And that focus on only the end goal will probably not get you where you need to go. Or if you do get there, you'll hate it, because you won't understand. You'll be like, yeah, it's cool, I get here and I can stand and I get this, but you don't understand why you're doing it. You have a lack of motivation, confidence, focus, you don't have a plan. I am very much a big planner. I'm not spontaneous in any way, shape, or form, but that also lends itself to what I do, so that's helpful. And then, without all of this, what happens is you give up too easily, and you end up going to work at a bank, because you don't know why you're out there doing this. And once your family starts saying, hey, we're never going to see you, and your life becomes all about what you're doing, it's not enough for you. And so then you end up leaving, and that's not really what you want. So, when you go after what you want, you start thinking about, okay, I really want to do this. I know my why. I want to work in college athletics. I want to work in event management. I'm going to speak about that because that's what I know the most about. This is what happens. As a person who has probably received thousands of resumes and cover letters, let me just say this. Number 1, please, for the love of God, check your spelling. Number 2, make sure you're sending the right letter to the right person. I know people get that thing, they're sending out thousands of resumes, and they inadvertently switch somebody's name to you're not going to get that job. You're not going to get that job if you don't take the time to make sure that everything that you're presenting, because this piece of paper, if they don't know you, this piece of paper is your representation to a place that you want to work. So you have got to take the time to spend making sure it's correct. And I know this seems pretty like, well, yeah, you would be amazed at how many people this happens to. And how many people, then they come back to me and they're like, well, I didn't even get an interview. What? I'm like, well, did you notice who you sent it to? Did you notice that you misspelled these 3 words? And one thing I always tell people to do, as far as like cover letters go, stand up and read your cover letter out loud so that you hear what it sounds like. Because a lot of times people write one cover letter and then they just slip in words and out for different positions and everything. It doesn't always sound like you want it to sound. So really make sure that you're doing that correctly. Research the organization. Okay, so again, as I said, I've interviewed a lot of people. The first question I ask is, why do you want to work? Why do you want to do this job? So you need to tell me why. The second thing I ask is, what do you know about our organization? In the days of websites and internet access and Google, you should know a lot about the organization. You cannot just tell me that when I ask you what you want to do, what do you know about Miami? You're like, well, Ben Roethlisberger went there. That is really not what I'm looking for. And I've actually had people have tell me, well, I really don't know that much. Okay, then why are you applying for the job? You can't just apply for something because it's a title. You need to research the type of organization that you're working for. The more information that you can have on the people that work there, the culture that's involved, that's because you are trying to find the place that's going to best fit you and help you get to where you want to go. So you have to do as much research on them as they are on you at a minimum. And then please be professional. Do not show up at an interview after you have mowed the grass and not changed. That's actually happened to me. Do not speak professionally. Turn off your phone. There is no message that you're going to get in that next 30 minutes, hour, day, whatever it is that you're going to need. So your phone should not be off. I should not be hearing. I shouldn't hear it vibrate. I shouldn't hear anything. Your phone should be off. Do not use slang terms. Do not think that you're like, oh, this person's really cool. I can relax my guard. No, you can't. You are on an interview. You've got to be professional 100% of the time. So the next thing is on the job, and I don't know if you can see this too well, but I pretty much, once you get out of the, hey, I'm an intern type of role or unpaid assistant or whatever, and you have your first actual paying job, you really need to stay places, if at all possible, like 2 to 3 years, so that you can get an understanding, build a reputation for yourself. Year one, learn the job, learn the people. That is the biggest thing. Building relationships, and I don't like the term networking, because to me that sounds like, anybody can come up to me at a conference like this and we can talk for 5 minutes, but that's not a network. Because I don't really know who you are, I don't know what you do. The people you work for and with, they're the people who know who you are. They're the ones who are going to recommend you for other things. And they're the ones who are going to help you. So learn the people from the janitors all the way up to the president. Make sure you know who they are, and then bust your tail. I said that nicely. I would usually say something else. But make sure that every time anybody asks you to do anything, you are like, sure, let me help. How can I help you? Let's go get it done. You gotta be after it all the time. One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Harvey, which he says, "The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately." You can dream, but you really, really, really have to work in order to get that done. In year two, you'll try to implement a couple new things. We're not going overboard here. Keep fostering those relationships with folks. And then one thing I forgot to mention about the relationship, go to them. Don't expect them to come to you. You need to get out like burn shoe leather and start walking, going to see people in your facilities department. Go talk to them. The guys that mow the grass and do all that. Make sure you know those folks, because they're the ones that are going to help you when you're in the jail. And again, bust your tail. Year three here, that's when you can really implement change. Because at this point, people trust you. They know that you're out for their best interest and you want to help them be better. So you can really make a significant difference here. And at this point, your boss should be coming to you and saying, hey, you know what? You've done such a great job for you. There's a job over here that I think you need to have. So I'm going to recommend you for this job. We love to have you. We love to keep you, but you got to move. I know what you want to do and move up, and this is what we're going to help you do to get there. And that's how you get there. I have an example. So one of my first interns was a guy who, he came to us, he was a junior at the time originally, and he'd been working in the human resources department at our university. And we met with him and talked to him, and he'd actually really done a lot of kind of event things up until that point. So we took him into the program, and I remember the guy, he's a big guy. He's a big guy this way and a big guy this way, but every time we told him to do something, he ran. He ran every single time. So by the spring, people were like, who is that guy that's running all the time? I mean, whether it was to get a foul ball, whatever it was, he was running to do it. And we'd be like, oh, that's Michael. That's Michael, he's running, he's always running. And he would just kill himself to do whatever you needed to do. He stayed with me the longest. I believe he was with me for 6 years because he was 2 years as an undergrad. He came back and worked worked in grad school for 2 years. He was continuing intern for us as a graduate intern. And then I hired him as an assistant director and he stayed there. He's now is the head events person at Oklahoma. And he's not 30. And he busts his ass every single day. And every person that works with him knows that about him. They don't know his name. They may not know his name. They don't know. They may know his first name. They may not know his last. They probably don't know his last name. They don't know. All they know is that guy's running everywhere he's going, and he's doing quite well. So, as far as advancement goes, as I said, be willing to do anything. Steve Cady is a person who is at Miami University. They have a building, the hockey building is named after them. He's been there, as we said, since they brought in the dirt. And he's another person who, he comes in at 4 in the morning and doesn't leave till 8 or 9 o'clock every single day. Now I can't do that. But Mr. Cady was always there. Pipe burst in the football stadium in the middle of the night. I call up, there's water flowing he's there. He stayed on campus for 48 hours. Never went home until it was fixed because we had a football game that weekend and God help us, we were going to make it happen. So, but he always used to say, if whatever your boss is asking you to do, it's not illegal, immoral, get some NCAA rule, you need to be doing it, and you need to do it with a smile on your face. And I always took that home. I always took that with me. Even though when I met him, I was probably, I've been working for 10 years. But this guy is he just keeps going and going and going. In fact, they had a retirement party for him this summer. And because we were like, okay, as he had said, he's going to retire. He's going to slow it down. His wife is very happy because they were going to get to see their kids now. And so we're now living in other states. He gets to the podium for his speech. And he was like, yeah, you know what, I've decided I'm just gonna go down to part-time, so I'll only work 60 hours a week. So he didn't really retire. So he opted to stay, because I don't think he would know what to do with himself pretty much if he had all day. But that is pretty indicative of who he is. So I know that there are folks who they have it in them, they have a time schedule, they want to advance all the time, and they get a job and 6 months in, they're like, okay, where's the next thing? Don't always be looking for the next opportunity. Because when you're doing that all the time, you're not doing the job that you've been hired to do well. Like, you need to focus on what you're doing. You can't tell me 6 months into a job that I'm bored now, I don't have anything to do, I need to move on. To me, what that tells is, you haven't invested enough time in the job that you have. And how is that going to help you? You're not going to get anywhere any faster just jumping to jump. So, doing a great job in your current role all the time. The relationships that you build across from everyone, never be too busy or too big to talk to anyone. Whether they mow the grass or clean the bathrooms or answer the phones. You can't always be trying to put yourself in front of big time people or people you feel like with the title, because that doesn't help you get things done anyway. Particularly when you're in events and we got something bad goes on, it's either pouring down rain or something has broken or busted or whatever. The way I got people to move more quickly to help me is because I was friends with them. So your friend is always going to be more willing to help you and to do more and to go above and beyond than just some person that you have on a sheet to call if a pipe bursts in the bathroom. So make sure you know who those folks are. And then also, when you want to do something that's probably on the edge, like have fireworks, the flames coming out, where those folks will help you get that done, instead of just having that immediate response of, no, yeah, we're not gonna do that, that's not allowed. So I can't stress that enough. And then if you're doing all of these things, those jobs will come to you. What you want to do will come to you. Especially if, when you're doing, and I suggest when you're doing your review process with your bosses, you need to tell them, hey, these are my goals. Eventually this is where I want to end up, and and again, that goes back to the why. This is my why, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to end up. Because when I told my boss at Miami that I was leaving, the look on his face, I thought I'd shot his dog. Like he was like, but then he didn't say anything for like a full minute, and then he said, you know what, I can't really be mad. You've told me every time we've had a conversation about this, you've told me you wanted to go back to working at a conference office. So I knew that. So I can't, yeah, good luck. Go forth. And so when I go back to Miami, which I actually will go back on Monday, when I go back to Miami and I talk to them, that's still a relationship that I have. I didn't burn a bridge by leaving somebody in the lurch, because he knew what I was going to do. He knew why. And when it actually happened for me, he was like, awesome, good for you. So that's kind of a little bit what I was going to talk about today. And I'm hoping that you guys have a lot of questions. As I went to the reception last night, there were a lot of questions. I lost my voice actually for a minute in time after talking so much. So hopefully there was a lot of questions that you guys could ask me. But I will say that I only got to where some of it was straight up luck, because my first job at Conference USA kind of propelled me to go forward. But I will say I was working a full-time job at Indiana Special Olympics, where I was getting paid an actual salary, and I was living at home with my parents for free. I left that job to take an internship that paid me $900 a month to live in the city of Chicago. I bought my food on a grocery card. I bought my groceries on a credit card for a year because there was no $900 in Chicago. Yeah, you're not living very high on the hog. So, but that's what I did. But that decision and that sacrifice paved the way for everything I did after that. So, what questions? Anyone? Yes.
Cool. So first question is, I kind of want to know what your why is. If you can delve into that a little bit further.
Sure.
And then, kind of not related, but where do you see the future of, I guess, college athletics as a whole, but maybe your sector a little more specifically? 5-10 years down the road. If you could look into a crystal ball almost.
So I am a planner at heart. I plan everything. I don't, much to the chagrin of my friends and family, like even if we're going to dinner, I'm the one who makes the reservations, and I always call ahead. And I've always done that. And I didn't realize, I think I probably was like 30 or 32 before I realized this was what I was doing. I think one of my friend's boyfriend at the time was now her husband. He asked me, I was just meeting him for the first time, and he said to me, so do you consider yourself a spontaneous person? And I said, oh yeah, sure, I'm spontaneous. And he said, so what was the last spontaneous thing you did? And I said, well, last week I just took a half day, went to the movies, and da-da-da. And he said, so did you plan? Did you look up? Did you just show up at the movie theater and pick the next movie that was playing, or did you look ahead? And I was like, well, no, I looked it up, and I looked for the movie I wanted to see, and I went to the theater that was showing that movie. And I was like, no, you're right, I'm not spontaneous. So, I mean, that was one of those light bulb moments that was kind of silly, but you're like, oh yeah, no, not spontaneous. But whenever, with all of my friends, it's really kind of funny. Whenever we do anything, from vacations to anything, I'm the one, I look it up. I'm a person who likes to do research. I like to research things. It may appear like I'm just showing up and kind of doing this on the spur of it, no. I have even, no matter what I buy, or if it's a car, house, whatever thing, I have researched it for about 6 months prior to actually doing it. It's a little obsessive, and then I'm ridiculous about details. So I'm the one going down, very good at timing sheets with the minute to minute and seconds to whatever. So I think that I would do that. I do that all the time. It actually, I don't know, I think brings me comfort. So that's how I do that. As far as the landscape of college athletics, I think there's going to be some significant change with the TV contract, which I think when that comes up in 2024, I believe is the next time, that's when you're going to see another major shift in what's going on, because as you know, most people now are not buying linear television packages, your DirecTV, Dish, whatever, Time Warner, or whatever cable is here, I don't know, but like they're not doing that anymore. So ESPN is going to have, and others, Fox Sports, whatever, they're going to have to figure out a way to monetize those things in a different manner. And I think that probably the advent, they're probably going to end up spending more time, energy, and effort. Like ESPN3 is the platform that you can watch online. There's probably going to be more of that. I still am waiting for ESPN8 though, the Ocho. Because I feel like we're going to get there. Like, I mean, I got no doubt we're going to get there eventually. But yeah, I think that it's going to go that, and people are going to be able to choose kind of exactly what they want to watch instead of buying one thing and just getting what is being put out. So, yes.
Ben, so I got to talk to Keanah yesterday a little bit at the reception. I told her I'd ask her this question here because her response was really good. So one of my research interests is looking at the trends pertaining to diversity in sport, and we'll actually be starting a diversity in sport club here at Florida State this spring for the first time. So given that, what kind of obstacles have you had to overcome, and what kind of advice do you have to those war minorities who hope to break into the industry?
Well, I will tell you, I was very, as I said before, I was very fortunate in my career. I actually didn't work for a man until I went to Miami, which in the world of athletics, that is astounding. My boss at Conference USA was a lady named Brenda Weir. She's since passed on, but she was one of the people who helped started that book, which is now like Women Leaders in Sport. And so I learned a lot from, what I learned from her was that I didn't always speak like this. I used to have a very, I guess, I wasn't quiet, but I had a higher pitched voice. And she was like, if you're gonna get people to listen to you, you need to learn to speak with authority. And you need to learn to speak with authority all of the time. Because what happens is you go and you're just like, if you don't speak with authority, people will start pushing, particularly coaches, they'll start pushing back, asking, how can I get away with this, and da-da-da. So in order to cut that out, I actually changed the pitch and tenor of my voice. That was one. Then I went on to work for Judy Sweet at the NCAA, who is, if you don't know her name, look her up. She's kind of she's big time women's advocate. She was the first senior woman administrator at the NCAA. And she has done a lot for women in athletics, and having their continued support and learning from them was probably, like, that was one of the greatest benefits of my career. Now, I will say that didn't prevent people, though, from trying to keep me from where I wanted to be, or doubt my ability to do things. When I first interviewed with Brad, one of the questions he asked me was, would I be able to say no to people? And I've thought to myself, you would never ask a man if he would be able to say no to somebody. But okay. But here's the thing, yeah, that's not a problem for me. And I guess he did it kind of facetiously, because he laughed and he said, I actually asked several people about you in that question, and they all laughed in my face. Yeah, I have no problem saying no. It doesn't make a difference who you are. If you can't go, if you're not supposed to be here, you're not supposed to be here, and we can move you on to where you're supposed to go. So, but then I've had bosses who maybe didn't know me as well, who, when a job has come open, they said, well, do you think that they're actually looking for you, or you're just there to round out the pool? And I'm like, it's one of those moments where I was actually very proud of myself for not losing my complete mind, but I was like, well, I guess I'll find out when I go on that interview. So, yeah, it still happens for women, minorities, in athletics, and pretty much, as we talked about, it's a societal issue. I mean, people still have issues going to a woman doctor. So you can't, it's everywhere, and you're gonna have to learn to adapt to it. You're not going to say, I'm gonna stand here and do this my way and come hell or high water, because it's not gonna work. You're not gonna get to where you want to go. And yeah, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you think that, okay, how are these other people advancing? I'm doing so much more than they are. And why does nobody recognize it? For the longest time at Miami, like I was on senior staff, but I was the least paid senior staff member for by 20 grand. And it was, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that until another friend of mine who was on senior staff was like, I just found this out and this is ridiculous. And actually he, who was a white man, he fought for me to get more. So it's also great to have allies who can help you out in those situations. So yeah, it's a different standard. You're not gonna be able to go hang out with the boys and have a few drinks and, get out of control and have people still kind of respect you the next day and say, oh, that's a little bit more difficult. You've got to hold yourself up to a higher thing. But I mean, I got to tell you, I knew that from the beginning. My mom was telling me that at like 5 and 6, you got to be twice as good. You got to be better. You got to be no matter what you want to do in life, you're going to have to be better, stronger, smarter than everybody else going down for you to advance even half of what they're going to get to. So, yeah, it's a problem we have totally. Either one. Good.
Hi. I had a question. You talked about the why. Is there such a thing as a bad why or a negative why?
Here's the thing. I don't believe so, because to get to the why, it's what's intrinsically in you. Now, your why may show you that maybe working in athletics is not the thing for you, so go do something else. But your why is really personal and really internal, and it's more than, I want to work with Division I football. Like you gotta delve a little deeper, so I don't think there can be a bad why if you actually get to it.
Also, talking about using your networks, how do you avoid sounding? I know I've communicated with people more recently, and I feel like I sound like I'm just coming to them because that's all I want. When in reality,
I'm gonna stop you. Offer to do something for them. What can you do for them? So instead of going to them, asking them to do something for you, what can you do for them to help them? Show them that, hey, I'm a quality person, I'm willing to work, I want to learn from you, how can I help you? That's different than, hey, nice to meet you, I'm Rod Jones, and I really would like to get your feedback on my resume. I hope that answered. I know I cut you off, sorry. Hope that answered it, though.
You mentioned earlier how someone complained to you about it raining outside. What's the most ridiculous request or complaint that you've received?
Outside of the raining, there was a basketball game where there was a really kind of monsoon rainstorm, and local high school, one of the high school athletic directors came to the game, and he came in and he was fired up. It was really pouring sheets, and he was mad about the rain, but he wanted us to install an overhead walkway from the parking lot to the arena so that people would not. get wet when they came into the game. And I was like, yeah, you're not athletic, really? No, we're not doing, I mean, come on. we're not doing that. That was pretty ridiculous. I've had a lot of ridiculous things. I had a guy who claimed that his dog was a service dog, and then the dog bit somebody. And I'm like, no, your service dog can't bite, like, there's no service dog that bites people. Like, I mean, so you can't bring that dog back to, it's a service dog. No, it's not. So that was, so I have had pretty much every kind of ridiculous story you can have working events and such, so.
So you were mentioning earlier how absolutely hectic like an event's life is. How have you achieved personal wellness and sanity throughout a career in that field, and how would you suggest we do the same if that's something we're interested in?
I am, first of all, I'm gonna say I am not the poster child for that. And a true example, so because of my need to do things for other people, I have often a hard time saying, no, I won't help you, I won't do that. And by the time I took the job, I was killing myself in Miami, as I said, with my 100 jobs and trying to help everybody and writing recommendations for kids who had graduated through our program and student athletes that we worked with. I was just at my end. When I actually missed the first day of work at Mountain West Conference because I was in the hospital. I moved across the country to Colorado, and the day that I was supposed to go to work, I couldn't breathe. Now, moving from Indiana to Colorado, you cannot breathe anyway. 6,500 feet is a whole different world, folks. If you go there, don't think you're gonna just go out and start doing a job. You're not. So I ended up in the hospital for like 4 days. I had pneumonia, and I had pneumonia and exhaustion, and I was in respiratory failure, and it was bad. And I was at the end. I had nothing left because for the past 17 years, I had just been going. I very rarely took vacations other than to like drive the 2 hours home and see my mom and dad on the weekend and then go back. I didn't take off any time for me. The one thing that I got at Miami, which I think I brought my dogs to work, which now everybody brings their dogs to work, so they're like, it's all your fault. but I'm like, we're here all the time. We might as well. I mean, the dogs brought a lot of stress relief to everybody. But so I don't advise that you do that. You do have to take, while doing the best you can, you do have to take, they give you vacation days for a reason. I would say plan it, put it in your calendar, let your people know, hey, this is a week, I'm not gonna be here. Let folks know, and then don't try to do things last minute. And sometimes you need to take a mental health day. And you need to just, sit on the couch and watch bad television. Like you need to do those things for yourself in order to renew yourself so you can keep going. So I'm a little bit better at that now. But working in a conference office is a lot easier because I actually have most of my weekends. The Mountain West, we have so much staff. I oversee 4 people in the championships department, and I have 11 sports. So, like I have volleyball and track. That's it. So, and volleyball doesn't have a championship, so I have 2. So I basically have between that and spring meetings, I have 3 weekends I work. 3. I went from 3 weekends off a year to 3 weekends that I actually have to work now. So that's unusual. That is not typical. That is not typical even in a conference office, but that is kind of that's kind of how we have it divided up there. So yeah, I would say do that. Go ahead.
Good morning. Our keynote speaker yesterday, Kevin Carr, he talked about ingenuity in our field. What are some tips that you have for all of us in regards to event management or coordinating an event with sparking creativity that we need to plan and deliver?
I would say, first of all, you can always be better. And there's never a perfect event, but you can always be better. So I'm always looking at other events and seeing what people are doing and seeing how things can, and so I'm like, how can we implement that into something and I especially go up. So if I'm at an NCAA championship, what things can I take from an NCAA championship and apply to our even regular season soccer games? like that, those kind of things. If we can do those things, that will help our student athletes really especially feel like, oh, this is a little bit more special than what we do. And then I think the really biggest thing though is to care about it. And you'll forgive me, but this is what I'm saying. I'm like, it's a world, if you just give a little bit of a shit, it's really gonna make a difference. People, they don't realize how much, if you actually care and people know that you care. Our coaches knew that I cared about how their games went, so they would trusted me to try different things. Even if I had a student in charge, I never ever got pushback from any one of my coaches, which I found amazing, about putting a student in charge of their home event management. They were like, nope, I know you're gonna make sure they do it right, so go ahead, but you gotta build that relationship in order to do that. So I would say, look up and see if you look at your conference championships, look at other things, try to get ideas from that, or look at the NCAA and see what things you can do. Now the NCAA spends a lot of money on things, but try to pare that down and see what you can do. And I think the more events you do, the better you get at that, because event management is not anything you can learn in a book. You just kind of have to do it, and as the things happen, then you go forward.
We have time for one more question. I know, Tommy, you wanted it. Keanah, it was a pleasure having you, first off. We met again, just like I did Hunter, when I went on I call professional development trips.
Yeah.
And when I first met you, you were one of those people you kind of knew and you got the industry. But more importantly, I think what Ben mentioned too, with the diversity and your passion, and the time I met you in Colorado Springs, you could tell that you truly cared. And I can't, and I know our students can't, thank you enough for you taking the time out of your schedule, because I know you said you're going to be on an 8-day road trip. You're headed here to Indianapolis to the NCAA, then you're headed to Miami, Ohio, then back to Colorado Springs. And with that being said, I can't thank you enough. So with that being said, we get a round of applause for Keanah Smith. We have one more question. One of my former students who works for events, who's going to be one of our professional development staff here. Callie Head, who works at the University of Florida in events, and she had a question for you before we kind of wrap it up, Tom, if that's okay.
Thank you. Okay, so my question is, having worked in a few different conference offices, have you found that the challenges in event management are similar or different among the different conferences?
They're pretty similar. Actually, no matter when a soccer game is a soccer game, whether it's the NCAA championship down to a regular season one, and when lightning hits your scoreboard, that's like, no matter where you are, you do the same thing. So I think that it's just on a larger scale. At the NCAA, obviously, there are usually multiple thousand people watching what's happening, whereas at a regular season soccer game, you might have 200. So depending on where you are. So the issues are the same, and kind of what you do are the same. It's just the scale of which you do them is the difference.
All right, thank you again, Keanah. Very excited. Appreciate it.
Thank you.